Did you see that EVO Japan tweeted out a Project L video? What a proto.
Guilty gear thrive thurverth or thuffering.
Are you okay?
So, because it's a fighting game, have you ever battled against each other? And the question is, which is stronger?
Oh no, that's a toxic question.
Actually, the first tournament we ever played in was in 1991 in New Mexico. Tom won that tournament. He was playing Dalsim, and I was playing Guile. And that has been the case for the rest of our competitive career. Tom has always been a little bit better.
He said a little bit better, 3-0, but it was close. I can't trust a game made by a sim player. They're talking a lot about GGPO creation and rollback, I suppose.
When the original Xbox came out, Capcom released Hyper Fighter, and I didn't have time to go to arcades anymore, so I tried playing it online, and it used an input delay system, which doesn't feel good to a player. I was disappointed. So in my spare time, I started looking at ways.
Damn, word.
Netcode. I have a computer science degree. I work in a tech company. I understand networking, but I'm also a player, experimenting with different techniques. I came up with rollback. First we played California, and then we played California to Virginia, and then we played California to Australia, and it held up.
How many things in life are like this, no? You're like, yeah, this is just bad. I wish there was a better way to do this. And it's like, well, I could just mess with it. Like maybe I could think about making this happen. I know about programming. I know what it feels like to be a fighting game player. And I understood all these other systems that people were making at the time with like shooting games and other genres that were doing things like this. And so I was just like, let me slap together a little rollback real quick. Like it's just an absurd thing to think about, right? Yeah, they're the goats. These two are such sweethearts too. They're always so fun to talk to.
Your experience in the fighting games has helped you in developing Project L. Could you be more specific how your experience from the past helped you in developing this new project?
Because we are players and because we have been involved with building experiences for fighting game players for so long, we have a lot of practice in understanding hopefully what will make players happy. For instance, when we're thinking about our rank system, we're thinking about what does it feel like to go through like pools and then to have that celebration of like, I made it out of pools, but now can I make it to the finals? And we understand the emotional journey that the player goes on, and we can try to come up with ideas in the game that give you hopefully the same feeling.
They'll probably do this because if you guys know about their other games, they have like Clash and other tournament stuff in the game. They pit you against other teams of your skill level and you play in like brackets on the weekend and stuff in League. They do things like that, right? They'll probably have things like this where you can play tournaments around your skill level or like open tournaments in Project L. I'd be surprised if that's not a thing they have.
Most titles have not succeeded in making their games actually free to play. So could you tell us about why you want to make it free to play and also how you're trying to monetize this Project L?
It's interesting because if you think about the volume of free-to-play titles that get made versus how many succeed, it's probably not skewed very well towards success, right? But as a genre, I mean, yeah, gacha games and mobile games all. Think about the top 4 viewership on Twitch in the last year for games, by the way. CS, Dota, League of Legends, and Valorant, right? For free-to-play competitive games, and like all of them, you can just boot up and play. You don't have to spend money on them. Could a free-to-play fighting game be extremely successful? Yeah, of course, right? Like it's a proven model. You just need the right game, right place and stuff.
One of the things we're trying to do with Project L is let more players find the magic of fighting games. And right now there are many barriers. One of the things that can help there is making it free to play, where one of the things that we're very serious about is making sure that they get a genuine experience, and so we will never try to sell power. And that will lead to more engagement, and then when they spend money because they love the game, they'll feel good about it. As far as models, like Riot has other titles in the free-to-play space, like League of Legends and Valorant, that are very successful. So we're going to borrow ideas from those games and make sure that they make sense in the fighting game genre. For example, both of those games will sell cosmetics.
If you're playing Darius versus, Dunk Master Darius with the basketball and like he looks sick, like the skin, it doesn't change the power of the character at all, right? If there's a cosmetic on them. Valorant, it's like really easy to unlock the characters without buying them. It's like super fast. In League, it's pretty fast too, but also they have a rotation of free champions that you can play every week. So they might have something like that. Like KI did that with their free-to-play model. Jago was always free, right?
In the first half of the interview, you said that you were involved in developing Rising Thunder. This game was one of the first games to introduce cooldown system.
Yeah.
So
They
like
did it in
that,
Granblue
do you
too.
have
I'm not like a huge fan of cooldowns, to be honest with you. Like, I don't love a cooldown system. Something that people do in regards to balancing non-motion inputs. It's not like my favorite way to do it, but it is an example of how you can balance.
So let me talk about our approach to fighting games. If we're going to do something, we feel like we need to try something new. Like we will experiment to see if we can like find new things that can make fighting games better. Cooldowns in Rising Thunder was one of those experiments, but it didn't work out. We weren't really happy with that. Taking options away from the player, like you hit a button and then you can't hit that button again for 5 seconds or something. That was not a good idea. But there was a reason why we thought that was interesting. It was to try to balance simplified inputs.
Okay, so this is what I just mentioned, right? It's a way to limit the power of simplified inputs. So instead, you could change that by changing how the move is designed, like making it have less power, or just let it have more power and make the rest of the system okay with accepting that power level or whatever, right? But yeah, this makes a lot of sense because in that game, if you could just do all your good special moves all the time, some of those moves were fucked.
We've even learned more developing Project L.
Yeah.
And when we finally get this game to players, you will teach us so much more about this game immediately, right?
Yeah, that's kind of how it works.
The way that we think about this project and all of our projects is, can we constantly be learning and making things better and and try new things, not be afraid to try new things. But if they don't work out, listen to players and change.
It makes total sense that they're like, we want people to be able to use our stuff. There's nothing that feels worse, by the way, than when you would play that game and you would go to do a special move and you just can't do it because you're like on cooldown and you're like, dude, I want to just do my moves. Like, why can't I just do a move? Another way to do it is DNF obviously has mana, right, as the limiter instead. So you have to think about how you spend your mana.
League of Legends, they has been doing updates every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And for
That's so
fighting
much.
games, those updates, a lot of updates are not so favored among the players, to my understanding. So Project L, how are you going to keep the balance? How are you going to make adjustments? What are your thoughts right now?
We take inspiration from League of Legends, but for everything we do, we will do what's right for a fighting game.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
What we like about League is we think constantly keeping the game updated, make sure that the game doesn't stay in a bad state for too long. Part of the fun of fighting games is seeing an overpowered technique, and then the players try to figure it out. And maybe they can counter it, right? And then can you have a counter for the counter? And if you patch the game too quickly, that's not possible. We won't patch every 2 weeks. It's pretty safe to say that. We're going to find the right time between patches that works really well for a fighting game. And this is an area where once we are live one day, we're really going to listen to players. And if you tell us we're patching too quickly or too slowly, we'll try something else until we get it right.
Yeah, it's funny because there's been examples of frequent patching in fighting games and games that just sit on one thing for a long time. So like old NRS games used to get patched super frequently, right? And so I think like a side effect of that is the way people explored the game was, I might as well play the best, easiest character because the game's going to get patched again in X amount of time. Not really enough time for mastery. It wasn't actually valuable as the competitive player to play something that long-term you could turn into something effective. It was way better to just be like, yo, I'm going to play the best character in this patch right now. That's the easiest. And then just do this. Normally, the patch cycle is longer and we have more time for mastery than other genres where like, if you're playing a card game, playing the best card is really easy. It's not like there's not execution and that much mastery of strategy that goes into it relative to like a fighting game where the amount of time it takes to master one character is much higher than it takes for like so many other things. The difference between patch timing has to kind of change relative to the game. And if it doesn't, what people will do is just pick the best thing in every patch that's easy. Like, why would I spend time learning something complex that could be valuable long-term when I could just pick something that's like easy, effective, cheap, and do that every patch and never worry about truly mastering a character or the game. I could just pick what's good right now and then pick what's good in a week or two when you patch it,
Currently in Project L, 5 champions, Jinx, Ahri, Echo, Darius, and Eloy are announced. What elements do you place emphasis on?
What up, Hubara?
What do you think are important when bringing in champions to the games?
I think one of our strengths on Project L is how many different kinds of people we have that are passionate about the game. We have old fighting game players, we have new fighting game players, we have people who are new to fighting games, and we have people who maybe come from the League side, the League IP.
That's cool, by the way, because I mentioned when I was just like at DreamHack, I ran into one of the writers I know who's on Project L. And like he was just there playing 3S or whatever, right? He's like, oh yeah, I'm just playing some 3S, like, you know, just chilling, etc. And I do know people who are new to fighting games that have been like, you know, they have like an onboarding, like a learning of like, this is like the fighting game 101 that you go through. And I also know lots of experienced people who have been on the team who are like playing fighting games since before I was born, or have been playing fighting games for as long as or longer than I've been playing fighting games, which is already a long time, right? So they have a nice spread of people, which is cool. They have like people who like Tekken, and they have people who like traditional versus games, 2D games, like, you know, Guilty Gear, fast-paced games, slow-paced games. They have like a really wide variety, right?
There are obviously fighting game concerns you want to consider, like what is their archetype? Is this a grappler or a zoner? How can a player express themselves differently within that genre, right? We're also trying to look at the source material, the League IP, and really try to elevate it and say, for a character like Darius, what does Darius represent in League? And what's the best expression of that in a fighting game? They're very different games. League is very helicopter view, top down, and fighting game is much, much closer inside view. And so how do you make sure that that power fantasy, that essence of the champion, is true to a fighting game, but also true to the League IP? We have so many different perspectives on how to accomplish all of those things, and we'll iterate on a champion continuously until we feel really great about it.
You know, that's interesting too, because I don't know if you guys saw this, but when Ari was getting her visual update, people were like, bro, can you guys just make her look as good as the fighting game? League discourse was like, if the new model can look anything as sick as like how this Project L like look is, like I'd be happy. Everything has to look really easy to tell what's happening, but also really chonky, and like it's got to feel, the hit's got to feel right. The way Darius hits you has to feel heavy, right? And characters have to look slippery or fast, or the mobility has to look cool. Everything has to look cool, right? And then like League, you know, it's so high up there that like the models don't have to be as detailed to the eye when you're that close, because you're rarely looking that close, right? You're usually looking top down. It's different.
Wow, I see all of you, and I see more people behind you. I see more people over there, and more people over there. So exciting to see so many people who love fighting games all in one spot. It's why we love coming to EVO every year, and it's what we're trying to achieve. So thank you all for coming, and I hope you've had a great time.
Yeah, one of the things that's very special for me about fighting games is coming to these events and seeing the same people I saw 15 years ago or 10 years ago are still coming, and you see them and it's like a family reunion. So I'm so happy to see all of you. Like, they've been a big part of my life.
Some interesting stuff in here.
I'm hoping to see many of you in Las Vegas this year as well.
というわけでありがとうございました。
Thanks for having them. Thanks for being on. We got some new stuff out of this too. There's some new news in here. Weird that they sent him next to a mirror during this interview. Yeah, there's only one of them and there's a mirror. That's truly what it is. They talked about their free-to-play model and like some of the stuff, but it's mostly similar to what you like. Look, if you play other Riot games, you kind of know what you're gonna expect here. No, like I'm not really that worried about it, because if it's like their other games, then I don't really mind that much. As someone like, I generally like versus games a lot. I got in playing games on Street Fighter 4, but then I ended up liking Marvel more. So this game is, I'm really interested in it for a lot of reasons. I want more news as always, but we gotta wait. You know how it goes, chat. Stop telling me about inputs and start telling me how resources are gonna work. Yeah, true. I don't care. Like, it really, like, motion inputs or not, whatever, man. But like how the game works, the mechanics, all that kind of stuff is way more interesting to me. Like, I'm like, let me get in there. Because like whether you hit a motion or you don't hit a motion, special moves are special moves, but like the rest of the systems are what I'm really curious about for sure. Because they've already shown push block, and there's like a retreating guard and all this other stuff. Like, what else you guys got in there? What's under the hood? Just, I want to crack it open and see what kind of juicy deets are there, you know? Like, one button inputs will not let new players win if that's what people are worried about. It will probably make it easier for more experienced players. You having easier access to special moves when you know how the game works is like a little bit more valuable than someone who doesn't know how the game works having easier access to special moves, you know what I mean? James was talking to Yipes about that. He's like, yeah, I remember when Marvel 2 came out and we were like, dude, you think a fighting game with buttons like this, removing two attack buttons, could be good? Like, you think this isn't just a baby's game? Marvel 2 is a baby's game. Like, boo! And then, you know, turned out that game not so easy.